So I decided to become a beekeeper really just because I was at the library and I saw a flyer for classes, and I asked my mom if I could do it, and I decided to do it. So we got one hive that year after I went to the classes, and I became hooked. It's really addicting. The hives are so variable. Like when you get in a colony, every colony is different. You never stop learning. I've been doing this 9 years, and I still learn something new every time I get out in the bees. So the first thing a beekeeper does when collecting honey, well, first off is a beekeeper collects honey only about twice a year, so it's not like a weekly process. We go out and we collect the honey around Memorial Day and Labor Day during the two nectar flows. And the first thing, of course, is putting your protective gear on, so your bee suit and your gloves if you need gloves, and getting your smoker lit. So the first thing we do when we open the colony of bees is we'll take the outer cover off and then the inner cover, and all the inner cover is there for is to prevent moisture from falling onto the bees. And then we'll lightly smoke the top of the colony with the smoke, and that just calms the bees down so they don't come after you when you're taking their honey away. And after we smoke them and we get the bees settled down, we'll get our hive tool and we'll pop the frames out. So our honey supers have 9 frames in them. And we'll pop the honey frames out and we'll check each side of the honey frame to make sure that there's no uncapped nectar. So the bees will cap their honey when it reaches about 15.6% moisture content, and that's so it won't ferment. And if I extract any honey that's not capped, then that could ferment, and I only need like half a pound of uncapped honey, and it could ruin 300 pounds of honey, which is a lot of money, like $4,000 worth of honey for me. So we make sure we get capped honey, and once we find a frame of capped honey, we'll then brush the bees off the frame and put it in a separate box. After we go through a box and get all the frames with capped honey, we will bring that box inside, and then we'll cut the cappings off of it with a hot knife. And finally, we'll put it into our centrifuge. It's called an extractor, and it'll hold 24 frames of honey. And we usually get about five gallons of honey from 24 frames, and it spins it out of the frames for us so we can reuse that wax and put it back on the colony. The most rewarding thing about beekeeping is definitely getting other people into it and helping mentor other adults and seeing their passion grow for bees, just like mine did when I was younger. So Auburn University's honey, we sell all of our honey. We sold it all last year. We just sent an email out through the College of Agriculture and sold all of it that way. So how do you find the queen bee in a colony? So, well, I marked the queens, but before I marked the queens, it's really just experience in the honeybee colony. She walks a lot differently than the other bees. She kind of wallows as the other bees run frantically. She's very heavy, so she walks differently. The queen also doesn't have any stripes on her, so she's about 2 times the size of a regular worker bee, and she has no stripes, while the worker bees will have stripes. So she'll either be really light color or really dark color. They won't be like yellow and black like you see on a normal honeybee. So when a hive swarms, that impacts our honey collection 100%. If a hive swarms before the main nectar flow, like I said before, the nectar flow is a 2-week period. So when a hive swarms, we won't get any honey from that colony that swarmed. We won't get any honey because there is not a mated queen in that colony. So it takes 16 days for a queen to hatch out of her cell. And then after that, it takes about 5 days for her to go on her mating flight. And then when she gets back from her mating flight, it'll take 21 days for her eggs to hatch after she lays them. So that's roughly a 50-day period where the hive population is going down and there's no bees being produced. And usually when they swarm, it's right before the nectar flow because the bees are getting ready for the nectar flow. And we usually don't get any honey off of colonies that swarm, none at all.